In Middos Perek Hey Mishnah Gimel, which we learned yesterday, the Mishnah said that there were 6 rooms inside the Azorah. We go back to our picture 3, and we need to keep on looking at it until we know it by heart. Har HaBayis, let's go to first picture number 2. Open area Har HaBayis. This wall here is the wall around Har HaBayis. This is east, south, north, west. There are 5 entrances to Har HaBayis. 1 east, 2 south, 1 west, 1 north. Eastern gate, Shushan Habira. The 2 southern gates, Hulda. The western gate, Kipunus. The northern gate, Teddy. And we've always focused on the Shushan Habira. Har Hazesim would be somewhere here. You walk down the mountain, you come to the wall, there's an opening in the wall, Shushan Habira, and you walk into, and you're now in Har HaBayis. As you can see, the Beis HaMikdash only occupies a part of the Har HaBayis. There's empty space. The empty space is called Har HaBayis. You then continue walking, and you walk through the little gate, the Sorei, and then you walk through the area called Chayil, and then you walk through the door to the opening to the Ezras Nashim. And now we're going to stop talking about the Ezras Nashim. Stop. And now we're only concentrating on the top square. You walked up 15 steps to Sha'ar Nikanor, the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the outer Mizbeach upon which the animal sacrifices were brought. You continue walking 12 steps up, you're in the rectangular Ulam. You continue through the Ulam, you're now in the Heichal. And in the Heichal, you have the first room, which has the Shulchan with the Lechem upon him on the northern wall, the menorah on the southern wall, the small altar, the small mizbech for incense in the center, a partition at the back of this room, and behind the partition, the Oro. This area, again, we're not talking Ezras Nashim, this area, once you walk through the Sha'ar Nikanor, above the 15 steps, you're in Azor. And this person had a question about how you get into the Azorah. You get into the Azorah through these openings. So now this person's question was as follows. We have already learned that when you walked into the Ezras Nashim, to get into the Ezras Nashim, this area, which we call Chayil, had 12 steps. And every step in the Beis HaMikdash had a height of a half an amma. Half amma up, half amma in. Half amma up, half amma in, except for the ulam. But all the other steps are half amma up, half amma in. So there are 12 steps in this light-colored area. Those 12 steps you walk up, and now you're in the Ezras Nashim. Well, if you're in the Ezras Nashim, and it took you 12 steps of a half an amma each to get there, that means that this box called Ezras Nashim is 6 amos, 12 times a half, 12 steps times a half each step. This Ezras Nashim is 6 amos higher than the Har HaBayis around it. Now you continue walking, and you walk up 15 steps to get into the Azorah. 15 steps, half an amma each step, that's 7.5 amos. So if you're in this area, you're now 6 from the Ezras Nashim, 7.5 from the steps of Nikanor. You're now 7.5 and 6, 13.5 amos higher than the surrounding Har HaBayis. And if you continue further, if you remember, the Bama upon which the Leviim sang the Shir Shel Yom, which we just spoke about, was somewhere here. And that was 2.5 amos above the ground, above the Har HaBayis. So we elevated 6 amos in the Ezras Nashim, another 7.5 inside Sha'ar Nikanor, and another 2.5 at the platform for the Leviim. 6, 7.5, 13.5, 2.5, that's 16. So if I'm standing here, let's say near the ulam, I am 16 amas, 6, 7.5, and 2.5. If I'm standing here right in front of the rectangle, I'm standing 16 amos higher than the Har Habayis on the outside. So now I want to walk into the Azorah, if I'm permitted to. I go through this opening. Well, if I'm walking on Har Habayis, how do I get up into the Azorah? The Azorah is 16 amas. It's over 32 feet higher than here. That means I need steps. How many steps would be here at this entrance? Well, if this is 16 amos higher than the outside Har Habayis, and each step is built a half an amma high, and I need to ascend 16 amas, that means there are 32 steps here. And that's what this person wanted to know last evening. How do you get into the Azorah if the Azorah is 16 amas higher than the Har Habayis? We know how you get into the Ezras Noshim, 12 steps. We know how you get into the Azorah, Nicanor. You walk in another 15 steps. But if you're walking in through these entrances of the Azorah, where are the steps? So when we looked at the picture here, we said, imagine that there are 6 steps, that there are 12 steps here. And we say, imagine that at Nicanor there are 15 steps. But if I imagine there are 6 steps in this narrow area, and this narrow area is consistent around the whole Beis Hamikdash, if this place has 12 steps, and this place has 12 steps, looks like it's consistent, then how do you get into the Azorah? You need 32 steps to get in. The Azorah is 16 amos higher than the Har Habayis. 16 amos means I need 32 steps. If here there are 12 steps, and that's the amount of room that the diagram is depicting for 12 steps, then it looks like there's only 12 steps here. But I need 32 steps. Excellent question. And the answer is there were 32 steps. And the chayil was at a width that allowed for flat surface, 12 steps, or 32 steps and less flat surface. It's a simple explanation. At the Ezras Noshim, there was flat surface, and then 12 steps. And to get into the Azorah, we need 32 steps. There wasn't flat area. It was just 32 steps. So that's our picture, and that was the question. And this is the structure we're talking about now, the Heichal. Now we're talking about entering the Heichal, right after you enter the Heichal. The Mishnah says that there are 6 rooms inside the Heichal. The first 6 rooms we learned about yesterday, and they were on the southern wall. One is the salt room, one was the parva. We talked about the parva with the mikveh on top of it. Parva was an ambushi, he was a warlock. We talked about him and why the room was named after him, and that's where they salted the hides of karbonis. And on the top of that was the special mikveh that the Kohen Gadol used for his last 4 immersions on Yom Kippur. And Lishkas Hamadichim, the room of the washing down the insides of karbonis. Okay. And we saw that picture yesterday. Here's our picture from yesterday, 47A and 47B. You're in the Heichal. This wall is the Nicanor wall. You can see on top of the door it says Nicanor. And you're walking through Nicanor, which means you're going east to west. And inside the Azora, there are 3 rooms on the southern wall, 3 rooms on the northern wall. The 3 rooms on the southern wall we learned about yesterday, and that's in diagram 47b. They're right up against the southern wall, basically. One is the Lishkat HaMelach, the salt room. One is Parva with the mikveh, and one is Lishkas Hamadichim, the room to wash the insides of the karbonos. And now we're going to the northern wall. What 3 rooms were on the northern wall? And for this, we're going to take a look at diagram 48, which I believe was sent to you yesterday or the day before. So we're now on page 71 of your Masechta Middos. And we're up to Mishnah Daled. And this is a preemptive mazel tov to everybody. This is the last Mishnah of Masechta Middos, which we're not going to finish today. We're obviously going to leave the last part of the Mishnah for our Siyum and Me'etz Hashem on Thursday. And we'll have more details sent out to everybody about the Siyum. So we're in the last Mishnah, Baruch Hashem. And the last Mishnah is now describing the 3 rooms in the Heichel on the northern wall. Mishnah Dalet, page 71. Sheba Doro. Now we explained yesterday that there's a switch in words. The last Mishnah on page 70 says Sheba Tzafon. Here are the rooms that were on the northern wall. And the commentary at the bottom of page 70 says that the word should be switched. Some switch it, and it should be switched. Mishnah Gimel, yesterday's Mishnah, is not talking about the northern wall of the Heichel, it's talking about the southern wall of the Heichel. Today's Mishnah switched as well. Mishnah Dalet, page 71, Sheba Doro. And if you look at the bottom of page 71, your commentary right here, it says on the first line, V'yesh gorsim shebet safo. There are those that change the word in the Mishnah to north. We're not talking about the southern wall of the Heichel and the rooms there. We did that yesterday. Today we're doing the northern wall. The first room on the northern wall is Lishkat Ha'etz, the room of wood. We'll see what that is. Amar Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov, who we mentioned earlier when we learned Masechta Middos, the Gemara tells us and deduces from different places in Masechta Middos that Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov is actually the author of all of Masechta Middos. So Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Shachachti mahoisa mishameshes. I forgot. I've authored Masechta Middos, and I know that on the northern wall of the Heichel, there was a room called the wood room, Lishkat Ha'etz, but Shachachti mahoisa mishameshes. I forgot what that room was used for. Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov is the author of the Mishnah. It would have been very easy for him to write Lishkat Ha'etz and then go to the next line. Abba Shaul Omer, Abba Shaul says, this is what the Lishkat Ha'etz was. We're going to be told what it was used for. A Tana by the name of Abba Shaul is going to say, this is what the wood room was used for. Now, if I'm the author, with my ego, if I'm the author, I write, on the northern wall, there was the wood room. Abba Shaul says that the wood room served the following purpose. Why would I put into the Mishnah that I'm writing? On the northern wall, there was a room of wood. And I forgot what the room of wood was used for. Oh, thank you, Abba Shaul. Thank you for reminding me what it was used for. The answer is these are great men. Great men are able to say, I don't know. And great men are able to say, I forgot. I'm not perfect. It's okay. The author, Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov, is telling you there was a wood room, the room of wood, on the northern wall, and I forgot what it was. I'm the author of the Mishnah, and I'm telling you, I forgot. I don't know what it's about. Thank you. Somebody just reminded me what it was. That sentence in there was not necessary in this Mishnah. He could have easily written the Mishnah as the author. Wood room, Abba Shaul says this is what it was used for. He's teaching us. The Mishnayos, the Gemara, the Torah talks to us. If you don't remember something, it's okay. If you don't know something, that's okay, because we're not God. We may have a God complex, but we're not God. And it's a great thing to say, I don't know. And it's a great thing to say, I forgot. It is so relaxing. It takes care of so much human anxiety when you're able to bring the words up. I am human. I am not perfect. I made a mistake. I forgot. I don't know. And then you can walk around the day appreciating that you're human, you're not perfect, and you may make mistakes instead of walking around thinking you're a perfect God. And then when you make a mistake, it's a complete tragedy. Oh, I made a mistake. How am I going to, what do I do now? I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Okay. Rabbi Dr. Tversky, in one of his books, quotes another psychologist who wrote a book, and I don't remember the exact name of this book. It has something in it called The Holiness of Error. And Rabbi Tversky quotes from this book about how it's a spiritual experience to make a mistake. Turn it into spiritual experience. I made a mistake. You know why? Because I'm not God. And I need God's helping hand to guide my life. Because if I was perfect, I wouldn't need God. But I'm not perfect. And I need God to help me and guide me. Wow. Baruch Hashem. And Baruch Hashem, I can daven 3 times a day and say Tehillim and ask God to help me and talk to Ribono Shel Olam. Wow. I don't have to be perfect. I have different ambitions about becoming better, but I don't have an ambition to be perfect. I don't want to be perfect. Nobody will like me if I'm perfect. And I won't like anybody else if I'm perfect. People that think they're perfect don't like other people. And people that see people who think that they're perfect, they don't like that person. Get rid of your anxiety. I made a mistake. I'm not perfect. I forgot. I'm human. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'm human. Give me some breathing space here. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the author of the Mishnah, says, I authored this Mishnah. There was a wall on the northern wall. There was a room on the northern wall of the Heichal. And I don't remember what it was used for. But Abba Shaul will tell me. Now Abba Shaul is going to tell us what the wood room was used for. Abba Shaul says, Lishkas Kohen Gadol. This was the room that the Kohen Gadol used. Meaning, first Mishnah in Yuma, the first Mishnah in the Masechta that talks about Yom Kippur says that 7 days before Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol left his wife and his home and his children and lived in the Beis Hamikdash. And he lived in the Beis Hamikdash because every day he went through training. He was trained on the difficult, complex avoda of Yom Kippur. Even if he did it the year before, especially in the second Beis Hamikdash, where usually they didn't do it in the year before. The tragedy of the second Beis Hamikdash is it stood for 420 years, the Gemara in Yuma says, and with rare exception, no Kohen Gadol lived out his year. There was corruption in the second Beis Hamikdash, where the second Beis Hamikdash is not like the first Beis Hamikdash. The first Beis Hamikdash had control, was built by Shlomo, and had control over it for the most part by kings who were descendants of David and Shlomo. Remember, the northern and southern kingdom split, but the southern kingdom that had Yerushalayim in it was ruled over by scions, descendants of the Davidic dynasty. The second Beis Hamikdash is built during the time where the Persians are in control of Eretz Yisrael. It's right after the Purim miracle. The Persians gave the Jews permission to start rebuilding the second Beis Hamikdash. Later into the second Beis Hamikdash, not too much later into it, the Greek armies defeat the Persian armies, and the Greeks dominate Eretz Yisrael and the Beis Hamikdash. They don't burn it down, but they dominate it. And then the Roman legions come, and they defeat the Greeks, and they take over Eretz Yisrael and the Beis Hamikdash. And eventually, unfortunately, the Romans burn down the Beis Hamikdash. Second Beis Hamikdash is not like the first Beis Hamikdash. And there came a point in the second Beis Hamikdash where Kohanim, or sometimes people not Kohanim, would pay off the Greeks or the Romans, because the Greeks and the Romans dominated Eretz Yisrael and ruled over the Beis Hamikdash. If you wanted to be Kohen Gadol, there was a bidding war, $100, $500, $800, $1,000, and the highest bidder got the clothing of the Kohen Gadol from the Greeks or the Romans, he became the Kohen Gadol. And when he went into the Kodesh Kodashim Yom Kippur, he died. Now, why did the next guy try it the next year and the next guy try it the next year? We all know why. Because I can smoke. I know that other people that died that died from smoking, I'm different. I'm going to be okay smoking. And if it says on the package, cigarette smoking causes death, not to me. So the Gemara in Yuma says that for a certain amount of years, there were tzaddikim who were the Kohen Gadol in the Beis Hamikdash number 2. But for the vast majority of years, it were people that bought the kahuna from the Greeks and the Romans, and they didn't even last out their year. They died on Yom Kippur. And then somebody else tried the next year. Someone else tried the next year. It happened to him. It ain't going to happen to me. And this went on and on. So the fact that the Kohen Gadol learned how to do the Avodah on Yom Kippur in year 1 doesn't mean he knew about it in year 2, because chances are in year 2 there was a whole new Kohen Gadol. Sometimes he was a Kohen, sometimes he wasn't. So he had to be taught how to do this complex Avodah on Yom Kippur. And 7 days, the first Mishnah in Yuma says 7 days before Yom Kippur, Mafrishin Kohen Gadol mi Beso Lalishkas Parhedrin or Palhedrin. It's a different name. We'll talk about that in a moment. Kohen Gadol was taken from his house 7 days before Yom Kippur, and he lived in the Beis Hamikdash. And he heard shiurim after shiurim after shiurim. This is what you do, the first thing. This is what you do, the second thing. This is how you go into the Kodesh Kodashim. This is how you bring the Ketores. This is how you do this thing. Constant shiur. Until he understood the Avodah of the Beis Hamikdash for Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol lived those 7 days in this place called Lishkat Ha'etz, the room of wood. Why was it called the room of wood? We'll see in a few moments. Well, we have a big question here. Let's take a look at diagram 48. Lishkat Ha'etz. It's right up against the northern wall of the Heichel. Now we're going to do a little review on diagram number 2. The original start of our Mishnayos and Masechta Middos taught us about Shmira. The Kohanim guarded the Beis Hamikdash in 3 places. The Har Habayis, the Beis Hamikdash. The Leviim guarded in 21 places. The Kohanim in 3 places. And the Mishnah taught us that the Leviim guarded each of the 5 entrances to the Har Habayis. And where did they guard? They guarded from the inside. Now remember, let's assume, as we did then, the halacha is you guarded at night, but the requirement was not to guard during the day. Night is a long night. If they're standing guard 11, 12 hours. How do you stand for 12 hours straight? So they needed to sit. The guards, the Leviim, and the Kohanim needed an ability to sit. So when they were guarding the Har Habayis, they were able to stand inside the opening to the Har Habayis. Because inside of the opening, they had a booth, and they were able to put chairs there, because you're allowed to sit on the Har Habayis. But you're not allowed to sit in the Azorah. Remember, we learned this. No one is allowed to sit in the Azorah except David or a scion of the Davidic dynasty. And that's what caused the split between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, as you recall. When Yerovam ben Nevat was told by Achi Ashiloni, God told me to tell you, you shall be the king over the north. And Rechavam, the son of Shlomo, shall be the king over the south. Yerovam ben Nevat was a great tzaddik at that time. But then Yerovam ben Nevat, when he became king of the north, had a problem. He said, what am I supposed to do now? Yontif is coming, Sholosh Regalim, and all my subjects from the north need to go to the Beis Hamikdash in the south. So we're going to all go to the Beis Hamikdash. We're going to bring our karbonos, and who's going to be sitting in the Azorah? Rechavam. the Zion of David. I won't be allowed to sit in the Azorah. I'm from Shevet Ephraim. So now all my subjects are going to look at this spectacle, and they're going to see Chavam is sitting in his chair, sitting on his throne, and I have to stand. What conclusion will my subjects come to? He's the real king. He gets to sit on the throne. This guy, Yeravam, he's nothing. It's a fake. He doesn't have a throne. He's not allowed to sit in the Azorah. So Yeravam decided that his subjects can't go to the Beis HaMikdash, and he built up 2 avodah zarahs on the highways in Dan and Beit El, and that's how the downfall of the northern kingdom begins. But there's the halacha. No one sits in the Azorah except a scion of the Davidic dynasty. So now, we're talking about the northern wall of the Azorah, and on the northern wall of the Azorah, there's something called Lishkat HaEtz, and it's in here the Kohen Gadol is to live for 7 days, Abba Shaul tells us. He'll live there for 7 days, he's going to sleep there, he's going to sit there, he's going to eat there, and he'll come out for the Shiurim on Avodas Yom Kippurim. How can the Kohen Gadol sit in there? How can he sleep in there? How can he eat in there? He's a Kohen. He comes from Shevet Levi. He's not a scion of the Davidic dynasty. How can he sit, sleep, eat in this Lishkat HaEtz? And the answer is, now we review the halacha. No one sits in the Azorah. No one sits in here except the scion of the, we're not talking about Ezra's notion, we're about Azorah. Nobody sits in here except a descendant of the Davidic dynasty. Ein yeshiva ba'azorah el lamalchei beis David, the Gemara tells us in numerous places. The answer is in diagram 48. Let's take a look at Take a look at 48. Look at where the Lishkat HaEtz is. It's against the northern wall. Right up against it is the second room called Lishkas Hagola. And what we see here, where the words are Lishkat HaEtz, there's no door. So there's no door here. There's no door here because there's another room built right on top of that room. So how do you get in and out of the Lishkat HaEtz? Take a look at diagram 48b. Lishkat HaEtz. Staircase. Where's that staircase taking you to? Outside the Azorah. It's going into where, Rabbi Isai? If you leave the Azorah and go down steps, where are you? In the Chayil. Diagram number 3. You walk out of Azorah, walk out of Azorah, out, out, out. Where are you when you leave the Azorah? What do you hit first? Chayil. So if you look at the northern wall, right, the northern wall of the Azorah, this is somewhere here is the Lishkat HaEtz, the room of wood where the Kohen Gadol slept, ate, and sat for 7 days before Yom Kippur. The room is built right up against the wall. It has no way, a person that's in the Lishkat HaEtz, the Kohen Gadol cannot walk into the Azorah. There's no path into the Azorah. He has only one way in and out, and that is to walk this way, take steps down into the Chayil. And that's what you see in diagram 49b. The Lishkat HaEtz is completely enclosed on all 4 sides except one side that has a staircase that leads outside the Heichal outside the Azorah and into the Chayil. When this happens, when there's a room in the Beis Hamikdash that has no openings into the Beis Hamikdash and only has openings outside of the Beis Hamikdash, that room does not have Kedushas Beis Hamikdash. It has a different Kedusha. Therefore, because the Lishkat Ha'etz is built right up against the northern wall, you can see that in 48a, it's built right up against the northern wall. There's no exit or entry into this room except through 49b staircase, and that's the only opening. The only opening of the Lishkat Ha'etz is into the Chayil. It has no opening. The Lishkat Ha'etz has no opening into the Azorah. It's sealed off from the Azorah. Its only opening is into Chayil, and therefore, so to speak, the room inside the Lishkat Ha'etz only gets the air from the Chayil. No air from, just using as a metaphor, no air, no oxygen from the Azorah enters the Lishkat Ha'etz. It's sealed. The only opening is into Chayil. Such a room does not have the Kedusha in it of the Azorah. It's not open to the Azorah. It only has the Kedusha of whatever Kedusha the Chayil has. And therefore the Kohen Gadol in this Lishkat Ha'etz was able to sit, sleep, eat for the 7 days before Yom Kippur. And that is the Lishkat Ha'etz, and that's called the Lishka of the Kohen Gadol. And we're going to come back tomorrow. We'll talk about the other names that this room had, Palhedrin, Parhedrin, and why it had all these different names and why it was called the room of wood. And the Mishnah, Abba Shaul explains at the bottom of page 71, Abba Shaul, Omer Lishkas Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Les Ben Yaakov said, I don't remember what the wood room was for. And Abba Shaul says, yes, that's where the Kohen Gadol lived for 7 days before Yom Kippur. V'hoisa achorei shteihem. The Lishkat Ha'etz was behind the other two rooms, which is the picture we just saw. The Lishkat Ha'etz in diagram 48 is locked in between the other two rooms, Lishkat Hagola and Lishkat Hagozis. It is locked in from all sides, except the one exit entry into the Chayil. And that's what Abba Shaul is describing. This Lishkat Ha'etz is behind the other two and sealed. The only opening to the Chayil. V'gag shloshtam shava, and the roof, we're now on page 72, the roof of these three rooms on the northern wall of the Azorah were at the same height. This is in contradistinction to the three rooms that were on the southern wall that we learned about yesterday that were at different heights. So at least according to Tosfos that we learned yesterday, the three rooms in the Azorah against the southern wall, the roofs of the three rooms were not at equal heights. Here the Mishnah tells us that the three rooms on the northern wall, you can see diagram 48A or 49 or 48B, all the roofs are of equal height. And now the Mishnah tells us that there was a Lishkat Hagola, Sham Hayabar Kavua, Vagalgal Nosan Olov Misham Maspikim Mayim L'chol Hazorah. And we'll learn about that tomorrow. The Lishkat Hagola had a well inside it to draw water for drinking and other purposes, and that's called the Lishkat Hagola. And then we'll come B'lineda tomorrow to the famous Lishkat Hagozis. And this is a very complicated room to learn about, but we'll learn about Lishkat Hagozis is the room where the great Sanhedrin, the 71 great men who paskined all shilas that couldn't be answered by any other beis din in Eretz Yisrael, the Lahavdil, Supreme Court, any questions that the lower courts couldn't answer, went to the Lishkas Hagozis, and the Lishkas Hagozis was in the Beis Hamikdash. So you can see we're on page 72. Page 73 is the last page of Masechta Middos, so we can already see the Mazel Tov that's coming, Baruch Hashem.